Let me take it in for a moment. There is no other way for me to begin this morning except to acknowledge my gratitude for Reverend Roger Butts. As my supervisor and mentor, his compassion, dedication, and humor have made this year transformative. I have learned so much from him, and I'm grateful that someday I will be a colleague and will continue to be a friend. I love you, Roger. So, having journeyed together for almost a year, I suspect that many of you will not be surprised that when I thought about the best way to articulate my deep appreciation and love for this congregation, what came to mind was a dirty joke and a Broadway show tune. I know, most of you are not surprised. So first, the joke, and yes, I know it is an intergenerational service. There was a woman at the fabric store who brought a bolt of fabric to the cutting table, right? And the employee noticed that the material was very sheer and lacy and something that might be used to make some lingerie. So they were surprised when the woman asked them to cut 15 yards of fabric. So for those of you who are not sewers, that's about 45 feet, right? Unable to contain their curiosity, right? They asked, "What do you intend to make with this?" And the woman answered excitedly that she was getting married soon and wanted to make something to wear on her wedding night. And the clerk paused, feeling a bit puzzled, and asked, "Isn't this a little too much fabric?" To which the young woman replied, "Well, I'm marrying a Unitarian Universalist, and they would much rather seek than find." This year, this congregation, Roger, my community advisory council, the board, have supported me through an extraordinary amount of seeking. This has provided me space for the most important element in learning, making mistakes. You have allowed me safe space to explore my sometimes, shall we say, extreme ideas on the feminine divine, family, death, matriarchy, Unitarian Universalism, and why perhaps we should not be seeking a happy life. Through the life-altering day of the Club Q shooting vigils, when we walked in accordance to our faith and galvanized this community's essential purpose, we are forever changed and we are forever bonded. So you know that there's no way that in a few short minutes for me to express my appreciation for all this church has done for me, but I hope instead that it has come across in my daily actions. How genuinely thrilled I am when I get to be here, and how deeply I love the people of this community. Recently, my Unitarian Universalist polity class in seminary, the Reverend Eric Banner said something and resonated so much with me about my time here at All Souls. He said, "There are always unstated assumptions at work in congregational life. There are the things that are written nowhere, yet live everywhere. It behooves each and every one of us, member, friend, minister, and staff alike, to spend much of our time focused on the clarifying conversations that will tell us where the work is, where it really is, and what we intend to do with it." I am most grateful for those conversations. The deep sharing of your hopes for this church, each other, and our faith. It reminded me of a Broadway show tune, For Good, from the show Wicked. It may well be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made from what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. This church has left a handprint on my heart. And while we are coming to the close of your interim years, it is good to remember that in a way, we are all interim ministers. We are all part of this church that was here when we arrived and will be here long after we're gone. We always knew that this time together was temporary, but remembering we are all temporary. That's part of our spiritual maturity. But that doesn't mean that everything is temporary. Roger and I leave soon, but love, like matter and energy, can never be destroyed. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
What you clapped through was him saying, "And all souls, I love you too, and I will see you soon," right? The only reason Yemi and I have known each other a long time, and the only reason he says that I'm like Jesus is because when I bring in authors and filmmakers, which I've done a lot, what I try to do, and what I've always tried to do on behalf of Unitarian Universalism, is work with New Life Church and All Souls Church. And when I have those flyers printed up, like for the Howard Thurman movie that we brought in, I put those logos next to each other. Why do I do that? Hope, hope, hope. I hope one day that we will work side by side for those areas that we agree upon. We can let go of those areas that we disagree upon. We can say we agree to disagree, and that would be fine. But on those areas like poverty and immigration, we can work together, or bringing in a film together. That's the only reason he says, he knows I'm a mess. He knows I'm not like Jesus. But he knows that in that one way, I try to build up a vision. Now, in 1841, Theodore Parker, our Unitarian forebear, wrote a sermon called The Transient and Permanent in Christianity as part of what endures. What endures in this liberal faith. And what I'm here to say, that what endures is that the liberal church must test the spirit of the age, and age after age after age. In 1891 or 1881, whenever this place was imagined and dreamed into being, what they were working on is different than what we're working on. And 100 years from now, what they'll be working on will be different than what we're working on. But what endures is that when we must look at those conditions within our time and place and stand for the human way, for the beloved community. Stand in hope and in faith and in love, the brotherhood and sisterhood and siblinghood of all creation. So, the morale of the story is that when we did Bob Armentor's memorial service the other day, Ellen was here, Ellen Johnson Fay, who served this congregation 20 years ago or something. And I looked at her and I said, I love you, Ellen. I love your ministry. I love your work in the world and your way in the world. And I say it to Nori. Nori in Manhattan, somewhere far away, listening to all these Broadway shows. I see her on Facebook. I think she's getting paid to go see Broadway shows. I'm not going to lie to you. I love Nori. After the Planned Parenthood shootings, I stood in this place and spoke a word of hope and healing. When we were trying to abolish the death penalty 10 years ago and a couple of years ago, I stood in this place and stood against the death penalty. When Sonia Bergeron, everybody give her a round of applause. And Christine Robinson and I walked into this place almost 2 years ago. We were still under COVID restrictions, I believe. These pews were empty. We didn't know quite what we were going to see. We didn't know what we had inherited. I know that your beloved Nori and my beloved Nori was in some city far away. I know that your music director, I think, was retiring. And Beth Green, the religious educator, went off to North Carolina. And we walked in here and we were like, what is going on? And now, because of your hope and your faith and your love, look around. You've got a beautiful music director who makes me laugh. Comes from Pueblo town on his horse every Sunday. That's not true. And I just wanted to say Pueblo town, it's just like so Western. And Molly, who's now with Emerson, I think, not here. Molly, our religious educator, and Brigida. And Christina Barnett. And thank you for playing piano for us. It's awesome. And then every time I come here, which isn't all that often, but every time I come here, I get to see Kat Lane, our new administrator. You've got a beautiful staff. You've got a beautiful vision. You've got a beautiful future. I was fortunate and blessed to walk with you down this path for just a moment, for just a moment, for just a moment. I want you to be a good neighbor. I went into First Congregational. I walked down to Wild Goose for one last time to get my coffee, Yemi's coffee shop, Russ's former coffee shop. And I went down to get my coffee. I stopped in at First Congregational. Leanne, the new pastor there, waved at me. A few people gave me hugs. Be good neighbors with First Congregational. You've got good friends there. They are committed to the same thing we are. I passed by Grace and St. Stephen's. Jeremiah, Father Jeremiah and Jen, they might go to Albany and become the bishop of that diocese up there. But as long as you've got Jeremiah and Jen over there, be good neighbors with them. First Baptist, I haven't been down to First Baptist in a while, but Reverend Dan over there, these folks, Unity up the hill, these folks want to work with you to build the beloved community. They have different metaphors than we do. So what? Who cares, huh? Who cares? It's metaphor. Metaphors be with you. Keep up your spiritual practice. This is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Keep up your spiritual practices, whatever they are, whatever metaphors you use, keep them up. Ground yourself every day in hope and wonder and awe, and tend to one another. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. God bless you and keep you.
Okay, part of what I'm going to say about Roger is going to sound really familiar, and I promised we didn't coordinate that. So, let's see here. Okay, I believe it was almost exactly 1 year ago, on May 20th, 2022, when All Souls had a Zoom-only service, still kind of that COVID thing going on, we had a ministerial student out of Albuquerque lead that service, named Beth Elliot. Little did we know at that time what was coming. Little did we know that our normal search for an interim minister wouldn't get us an interim minister. At the time, it seemed like a dilemma, but in hindsight, it seemed so obvious that, of course, we would ask Roger, the Reverend Roger, would you please extend for another year? And of course, Beth Elliot would fall into our laps as our intern minister to round out and bring our ministerial team to fullness. We've all seen who Roger is when he's preaching. We just saw it. We've seen his warmth and belief in our church and his desire that we find what we seek and become the best, biggest, and brightest version of this congregation, of this church that we can possibly be. We've benefited from his deep ties to the local community and from his invitations to local leaders to come, speak, and strengthen their connections to All Souls. But in addition to all that, I'd really like to highlight some of the things less well known, until just a second ago, that he's done for us. He's worked with Dale and Linda. In fact, he built our personnel team with Dale and Linda. And by the way, they needed one more person on the personnel team. So if you're interested, hit up Dale or Linda to join that team. But with this team and with Roger's relentless work, we've built a whole new staff, and he's already done the shout outs to Jay and Kat and Molly and Christina and Brigitte, and I just want to re-emphasize that. If you've been touched by any of these people, you've been touched by Roger's work behind the scenes. And that work, it really is foundational to everything that we hope to be as a church, and that's happened under his guidance, and our wonderful team as well. And lastly, but not least, is the work that, and this is just my personal view of Roger as a human, I believe what seems to be closest to his heart is his work with our care team. He's responded to members and friends of our church that are facing the difficulties of life and love and loss, and has been a balm, and has shown me the best side of his servant soul in that work. In this and in everything, we thank you for your service all these years to All Souls Church. Thank you very much, Roger. Got a couple of gifts. Really fallen in love with chalices lately, so I just want everybody to see this. Ooh. So it's a combo deal. Sweet. oil lamp inside of the ceramic chalice. So this is to light you and your servant's soul wherever you go. And then I went to Roger's favorite bookshop, The Tattered Cover, and bought a book that I hope he's really gonna like. It's a devotional, a daily reading from a Christian theologian, C.S. Lewis, that I think he's really, really enjoyed. But just in case, there's a gift receipt to his favorite bookshop included. So,
Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
We love you, Roger. Thanks. Okay, Justin, come on up. Okay, so what can I say about Beth? We've all seen her grow in this pulpit right here. And like with Roger, I'm not going to talk a ton about her leading from the front. We've all seen that. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the things she's done behind the scenes. She was an integral part of our search process, helping our search team. And I know Kate has spoken to me before about how helpful she was in guiding them and addressing all of the complexities, logistics, the UUA, and the spiritual and emotional parts of it. It was huge. And the excitement that we feel about Reverend Ron coming to us, Beth has been a huge part behind the scenes of making that come to fullness and reality. Similarly, she stood up our new worship team, and she led again by creating leaders. Our worship leaders and anyone else who sets foot in this pulpit will reap the benefits of her commitment to meaningful, authentic, organized, and empowered lay leadership. And so the last thought is, we weren't really sure if we're supposed to give you a stole at this stage of your career, but it sure has been easy to forget she's an intern. So right or wrong, we're giving her a stole. And we thank you and offer you our firm belief in your eventual ordination and contribution to the world as a UU minister, just as you've been for us. Thank you. So I'll yield up one more time, and then Justin, before you wander off.
I keep thinking he's going to take my walking stick.
How long have you been on the board, Justin? Does anybody know? He's forever. It's been a while. So Justin has served tirelessly, or sometimes, yeah. For those of you who don't know, he's vice president, president, past president again. And so this rocking chair is emblematic of some of the conversations and whatever else that we'd always get to continue to want to serve. I think just last night he sent me an email. What can I do to help? And I mean, the guy wants to continue to help, and I'm sure he will. But he loves the outdoors. This is a campfire rocking chair that he can take with all for any of his outdoor things and think of us and also continue to serve us. Thank you, Justin.